Welcome to the Golden Hour, the podcast community where moms and moms-to-be hear stories from other mothers and top experts in the pregnancy and postpartum care field. You can visit goldenhour.fm for more information, resources, and all other episodes. You can also find us at goldenhour.fm on Instagram for comments and questions. Welcome to today's episode of The Golden Hour. I'm your host, Dr. O, and today I'm joined by Dr. Meron Haile. I just realized I don't ever say your last name, so I was like, did I just say it right? Say your last name.
Haile.
Haile. Yeah, I like Meron, Merdog. There's all these iterations of your name, and I've never actually really had to call you by a professional. Haile.
No, it's
Thank
so
you.
formal, I know.
Dr. Meron Haile. There you go. She is a board-certified ophthalmologist, born and raised in San Francisco. She is like the true unicorn. She actually is one of those people who says, I'm from San Francisco, and she means it. She completed both the medical school at UCSF, where we met. We were roommates, 3 years strong at that sick Barney house, as Sina called it. And she did her residency at California Pacific Medical Center. Now practices at Kaiser in Union City. Outside of the clinic, Dr. Haile has been an active leader in the American Academy of Ophthalmology, serving on the Young Ophthalmologist Committee and mentoring underrepresented students through the AAO's Vision program. She's also a new mom, hence the reason why she's here. And she and her husband, Angus, recently welcomed their daughter, Zodi.
Yes, perfect.
Did I say it right?
Perfect.
Gosh, in the pre-show, I was so nervous, as you know, because I'm like, do her justice, even though she's too young to listen to this episode. I need to do her justice. Baby Zodi deserves all due respect. She came into this world July 2024, so her birthday is coming in hot. Welcome, Meron.
Thanks, Anna. Congrats on the show, by the way.
Oh my God.
So
you know,
proud
you and
of
I,
you.
Thank you. You and I go like way back into the house that our former roommate Sina called Sick Barney, and it was because it was just like had this really interesting color. Like it was this light purple, kind of like if Barney got sick, what you think his puke would look like, to be honest. But inside it was beautiful because we were in it. We had real love. I feel like you, me, and Sina were like siblings.
Yeah, we were.
We truly were.
Totally miss it a lot, actually.
Yeah. It was a good times. But fast forward, you and I both spent like many years getting our education on, and now you're a badass ophthalmologist. In the pre-show, we were remembering the time that I called you in a panic, January 1st of 2025, being like, I'm losing my sight. And you talked me down that ledge. I'm so grateful for you. And so
You're welcome.
Now we're turning gears. Now I'm going to kind of talk to you as an OBGYN. I think there were so many things that fascinated me in my profession, and so many things that inspired this podcast. And it's really just real life stories of my friends who've become moms, and really understanding not only the emotional and mental toll of pregnancy, which is a beautiful state, but also incredibly physical and can be arduous, let alone that transition to postpartum and motherhood and this, new version of yourself, and how to make that transition. And so having conversations with real moms who happen to be my friends, to me, is so rewarding, because I want to amplify the voices of women like you who've gone through that epic transformation, what we call matrescence, and really make other moms who listen to episodes like this not feel so alone. It's so common for people to talk about how isolating motherhood can be, especially those first early months where you're stuck at home on a couch or in a bed, breastfeeding every couple hours or pumping every couple hours or every combination in between. And so I just really want people to feel not so alone. So I thank you in advance for your honesty, your courage, and your candor.
You're welcome in advance too.
So let's keep it simple. Thinking all the way back, well, not all the way back. It hasn't been that far because, Zodi is still just 11 months. Mm-hmm. It's almost June.
Yeah, almost 11 months.
What's her exact birthday?
July 6th.
July 6th. Great.
Yeah.
I'll send her something in the mail, or I could just drive it there, Bay Area. Not too
you're
big.
welcome to visit there.
Anywho, what was your motherhood journey like for you? When I say motherhood journey, for me, it's a full extension of like the pre-planning. So like those early conversations you and Agnes might have had about like, do we want to start a family? When do we want to start a family? And then actually pregnancy itself, going all the way through, yeah, now your first almost 11 months raising this beautiful baby girl.
Well, that covers a span of many years, obviously. Angus and I
Yeah.
met, I wanna say in 2015, because it was just a few months after my dad had passed away, but,
Mm,
um, I would say relatively early on in the relationship, we kinda talked about, like, where we saw our lives going, family life, whether we wanted kids, etcetera, and I think Angus has always wanted to be a dad, like, 100% sure, like, knows he, like, needs to be a dad. Like, that's like, he
mm,
wanted fatherhood, like, to feel totally like his life was complete.
mm,
And I think for me, like, even before getting married too, like, I just kind of was like, I'm gonna go with whatever feels right, like, if I don't find a partner who I wanna marry, like, I'm okay with being single. If I happen to find somebody who makes me feel like, "Hey, it's worth it to really commit for the rest of our lives," then, like, I'm open to that. So, but it
mhm,
I never really had an idea of this is what my life needs to look like for me to be happy or content.
mm,
So I found Angus and I decided that I would get married. And I think, I mean, we wouldn't have married if I wasn't open to children as well. I don't think that
yeah,
the relationship would have worked out. So we knew that that was going to be in our future. And I was looking forward to that. So I guess fast forward, we got married in 2022, and then after uh, a little over a year of marriage, we started thinking about family planning. I am not a spring chicken, as many mothers are not at this point. I guess these days I'll say.
yeah,
So I was 34 when we really started, like, actually family planning.
yeah,
So I happened to be diagnosed with endometriosis, sort of like
mm,
it incidentally. So, um, I got off birth control for obvious reasons.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and after getting off birth control, I didn't make the connection initially, but I started having, like, umbilical pain, like, randomly umbilical
mm,
pain that would kind of come and go, and
yeah,
then I started realizing that it was timing with my cycles.
yeah,
So, eventually, after seeing, a CT scan, seeing specialists, I ended up having surgery. Turned out it was endometriosis. Luckily, didn't affect, um, my my tubes, my uterus, everything else
good,
was good. So,
yeah,
they took them the I turned out that I had an umbilical mass, which was an endometrioma, so that was removed
yeah,
and recovered well, very thankful that all of that went well.
yeah,
But because of that diagnosis, we went through more testing as a couple to just look at both of our fertility, and so,
yeah,
basically, it turned out that, okay, we probably are not gonna get pregnant in spite of this endometriosis situation actually not looking so bad after surgery, so,
good,
um so then we were basically told that the only option that really was realistically gonna get us pregnant was IVF.
mm,
And that, I guess, I mean, we know about IVF. I think we don't learn much about it in medical school for sure.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
so, and you hear people say, "Oh, I had to take a lot of shots," or like, It's a tough process." And I'm like, I've been through a lot with my health already. I mean, just in the sense of I'm type 1 diabetic, so like I've taken shots before.
yeah,
I can't say I was necessarily scared off by that. I knew that it was gonna be a lot of work, but I did I don't think I was actually truly prepared for how much work it was going to be.
yeah.
So, anyone who's gone through IVF, just give them a little just
Give
give them
him
a
a
little
hug. No, I would interject to say, I can't remember if I told you this, but last summer, because yes, you are aging, I'm aging, we're all actually aging because we're older today than we were yesterday. But as an aging woman who happens to be an OBGYN who's very ambivalent and undecided about starting a family, when I made a decision last summer to freeze embryos. And so it was
Okay.
really eye-opening for me because it's not necessarily the full cadre of meds that you have to do for like egg retrieval and then actual implantation
Right.
or embryo transfer rather, but, it was still weeks of injections, and I was like, "I'm a vet, I'm a doctor, I do surgery on people." I played rugby, so it means that, like, I've broken bones and haven't been phased by that before, so I really thought,
Right.
like, how bad can these injections be? Similar to for you, growing up with type 1 diabetes, being like, "I've done this, like, every day of my life for such a long
Right.
time."
Right.
And then I was just like, "Holy shit, this is really hard. This is really painful." And for me, I think there was a piece, and I don't know how it was for you, because I think you and I are similarly type A. Uh, but for me, there was this piece of, "Oh, and I also want to succeed, right? I had a certain amount of, like, eggs we were hoping to get that would turn
Right.
into healthy embryos, and so, like, I had this obsession with, like, every shot mattered. If I, like, lost, like, a drip of, like, the medication, I still remember one time, one of the injections really, really hurt, and I was like, "Maybe I just can't I need to just not give it to myself. Maybe I'll have U do it." And, of course, he did it, and, like, one drop got on my skin, and if it was me, I would have, like, forgiven myself, but because it was him, I was just like, "You've ruined this all! How could you?" And so
Poor thing.
and then I went back to, like, I'm just gonna do it myself. I need to, like, save our relationship. But really for me as a doctor who has a lot of privilege in my own knowledge base, like, when you're in it as a person, it's so different, and
Yeah.
truthfully, like, so much empathy for those who go through the IVF process, either because out of choice, because they're, trying to time family planning a certain way, or out of need. So I totally agree with the hugs.
Yeah.
I also wanna acknowledge, like, your diagnosis of endometriosis. It sounds like I was grateful to hear that the type that you had at least hadn't affected your uterus or your fallopian tubes, but there are so many women who it's not until they actually go through the process of starting to try to have a family that they themselves or their partner realize that there's things that would kind of impede things along the way.
Yeah.
As you reflect before we kind of go get to the actually, making of Zodi, as you reflect on, having to do IVF, are there anything that you wished your OBGYNs in the past had done either more proactively for you and Angus? Like, do you think that even though you guys weren't necessarily ready to start a family till you're 34, do you think visit at your, annual visit when you were 30, there should have been tests done? Like, what are your reflections as not only a now mom, but a physician on kind of what us OBGYNs doctors can do better, if anything?
That's a good question. I mean, I think the problem is hindsight's always 2020, right? Like
Mhm,
even for myself, I mean, I can't, to be honest, I can't fault my doctors have been great. Like my OBGYN, my endocrinologist, my PCP, like I really I can't say that there's really much more that they could have done. And I think, I mean, if anything, maybe I could have been more proactive about just sort of like explaining sort of more about my like my menstrual history, et cetera, because even in my teenage years, I had had really just my cycles were always like just a bad time. And I was anemic
mm,
because of heavy, heavy flow, et cetera. But
mhm,
I was on birth control like from a relatively young age, not really for the purposes of birth control, but just for the hormonal
mhm,
component to help with how awful my cycle was. And then I had just been on it continuously for so many years that my symptoms really were not, I mean, I had like zero endometriosis symptoms since I had been on
yeah,
birth control for like for basically, I mean, 2 decades almost.
yeah,
So, I mean, I don't know that there's any other way other than getting off of birth control. I don't think that there's any way that we would have, like, detected it, and I think it just wasn't active too, like, I think just getting off of the birth control is what kind of, like, set it off in this direction.
exactly.
So, I mean, I think in general, just not necessarily endometriosis related, but I think OBs just maybe talking to women more about like freezing eggs, at an age where they're going to be healthier than if we wait until it's like we just have this tiny window to, to do the egg retrieval process. I think that would be helpful because I think a lot of women don't necessarily know when the best time to do things like this is.
Mhm, mhm,
So, I mean, even having those kinds of conversations in our 20s when it's, it's early enough that you have some time to think about it, but at least just to plant the seed, I think it's a good idea.
yeah,
But in my particular case with the diagnosis that I had, I don't know. I don't know that there was really a way to kind of foresee that that would be an issue.
yeah. And I appreciate the reflection, and interestingly enough, I had a guest on who is a New York Times author. She published this great book called The Big Freeze. Her episode we're recording now. An episode's going to launch months from now, but her episode is going to launch next week. And part of the discussion we had was the industry of egg freezing and really the controversy that egg freezing companies that offer egg freezing, primarily fertility practices, are also just profiting on
Mhm.
a bunch of young women who feel scared and feel like egg freezing gives them some agency versus reality. And there's not like a really clear, it's not a clear black and white. And I think you probably appreciate as much as I do as someone who practices in medicine, how gray and nuanced it all is. But my
Totally.
big takeaways from that conversation with her and conversations with my colleagues who are fertility specialists is like that that the eggs that you freeze, number 1, don't all become embryos because
Totally.
many eggs get lost in the thawing. 2, it's that those are tend to be used for, like, a subsequent pregnancy, again, depending on what your fertility journey is, and so
Oh,
I think it's hard for me as an OB because I don't I and also cost, right? That it can be very cost prohibitive to do any fertility care, let alone egg freezing, and so
definitely.
you are in a situation where people who either can afford it are privileged, whether it's privileged because they financially have their own individual backing or they have great insurance coverage. But really, are we making like wide sweeping commentary that everyone should freeze their eggs when majority of these eggs might not be used at all? And what costs was that for them or the physical toll? We just talked about how you and I both felt the physical toll of taking those medications and the injections and how hard it was.
And it's not without risk too. I mean,
Yeah.
the medications have side effects as well. I mean, I
Yeah.
definitely don't think
100%.
that universally women should be freezing their eggs by any means. But I think just to be aware, like
Mhm.
about sort of what the timelines in general look like for women and, and whether it makes sense to do it or not. But yeah, by no means do I think that this should be something that's done universally. It should definitely be on a case by case basis. In my case, it was
Yeah.
necessary, but in certain cases, it
Yeah.
probably is not.
Yeah, and the conversation I have with each patient really depends on their age, right? The way that I'm talking to a 25-year-old versus a 35-year-old versus a 45-year-old, because truly those conversations, that spectrum of age happens
I
like on a
believe it.
weekly basis for me,
Believe
is
it.
so different, right? That 25-year-old, I'm like, yeah, just go for it. You're good. That 35-year-old, I'm like, still go for it. But if you think, you're not gonna have that kiddo in the next couple of years, maybe consider egg freezing while you're going for it, just in case it's harder. And
Yeah.
45-year-old, I'm saying go straight to a fertility clinic
Yeah.
because it's just you deserve that. So yeah, so it really is individually based. But let's go back to you. Thank you for appeasing my questions of curiosity. But going back to you, so it sounds like you and Angus recognized that fertility care was going to be the way to make Zodi. I think you already alluded to kind of just how surprisingly challenging it was for you. Can you elaborate on that more?
Sure. So I guess, you mentioned I'm an ophthalmologist. I work full time. I work 9/10, I guess I should say. It's full time, but I get
Yeah,
2 weekdays off a month and, we have call,
yeah,
et cetera. So it is full time.
yeah.
So
That might be fuller than my full time, girl. That's
it's
that's
very,
that's extra
it's
time.
very
That's
full.
overtime.
It is. I mean, usually I work like, I don't know, either like 50 or 60 hours a week, something like that.
Yeah.
So so I have a full-time job. I also consider having type 1 diabetes a full-time job because it really is a
Huh?
full-time job.
Yeah.
And then I think just, the number of medications I think that you have to administer and trying to do them on time
Mhm.
at a place where there are some days where I may not eat lunch. I may not use the restroom for hours beyond when I probably should have. I mean,
Yeah.
my days are really, really pretty packed. And
Yeah.
I've always kind of just sacrificed my comfort and probably my health a little bit to get through the day and feel like I have served my patients well.
Mm.
And I think really having to carve out a little bit of extra time for doing meds, for doing vaginal suppositories multiple times a day, like, I mean, all these different things I think I didn't realize how just that extra constant layer of stress would kind of take a toll after a while. I still feel like
Yeah.
it was totally worth it. So it's not to say that I don't feel any bitterness about it at all. I'm really
Yeah.
grateful actually for how everything worked out and I think all is well that ends well, but that was, I mean, just being totally transparent. It was pretty overwhelming. And I think one thing that sounds like a really subtle thing, but actually ended up being a huge just pain in the rear for me, literally pain in the rear, was that there are different types of injections, right? So there are
Yeah.
subcutaneous injections, which insulin is a subcutaneous injection. So the subcutaneous medications, even though just carving out the time and trying to do them at the times that I was supposed to, so many times a day, that was hard. But then the intramuscular injection, which was progesterone, which was after
Yeah.
implantation, that was for sustaining the pregnancy, which I had to do for many, many weeks after
Yeah.
implantation. That's an intramuscular shot that you take every day for months. And the needle's like, it's like and
Don't scare
it's not
me.
thin. I don't know, I can't remember what gauge needle it was, but and there I would just have like welts that would last like over a week from each of those injections.
Oh,
Like that, those kind of things were just like, this is the pits. Like there's gotta be a pill that
yeah.
they could give us. There's gotta be something else, like
Yeah. Yeah.
so
I believe it.
Those things were difficult. Luckily for me, the medications that I had to take during pregnancy to sustain, like, during basically through the first trimester were not as bad
Mhm.
as the meds for the egg retrieval. I did not feel great on them. Like, I just felt
Yeah.
like my pelvis was full of bowling balls or something.
Yeah.
It was just like,
100%.
I felt like I was walking around.
You're like, "What's a" have you ever seen Charlie and Chocolate Factory? There's, like, all these
Yeah.
things happen to the characters that are Charlie's enemies, and, like, one I think I can't remember if it's a girl or the boy character, but they, like, they
I think it was
throw
the
up or
girl. I know
something.
exactly what you're talking
Yeah.
about. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, what's her name? Bianca or
Exactly.
something? She just, like,
Yeah,
blew I
yeah.
remember at the very end being like, "I literally am full of, like, multiple grapefruits," and, like, I was trying to, like, work out a bit, although, like, I was like, "Don't cause ovarian torsion, don't do that,"
Yeah,
but, like, I would just
yeah.
try to do, like, little stretches as, like, "No, I cannot move my insides."
Yeah,
And you're
that was
also
not
right,
fun.
like, I when we did our embryo freezing, we did it in Turkey, it's a whole longer conversation I won't bother you with, but it's because $3,000 instead of tens of thousands of dollars, so it was just
Wow,
hugely cost effective, and
that was smart.
happened to be that yeah, happened to be the fertility specialist there was one of U's, like, childhood friends who we dearly trusted and got great care, but I was off, right? I was on vacation, it was definitely not a vacation, but I had 3 weeks off, and I could not imagine actually doing that with my real life job. I would've I don't know how. I don't
Yeah.
know how.
Well, I was back to work the next day, so
Yeah,
I was working up until the procedure, had the procedure. Obviously, I didn't work on the day of the procedure, but
yeah,
yeah, I was back to work the next day, and I mean,
yeah,
that is something that definitely I'll remember for if there's a next time not to be at work that
yeah,
quickly. I mean, because it's just silly. I mean, there's just no reason to suffer that way. That's if I do a retrieval again, which I
yeah,
probably won't,
yeah,
but yeah, I don't know why I did that. I guess I just didn't know how badly I would feel on the medications, and I think it's different for everyone because 'cause I've spoken to other people who have done egg retrievals, took basically the same medications and felt totally fine. So, everyone's experience is very different, but for whatever reason, those meds did not like me, and I did not.
No, I think it's a good reflection on everyone's experience is different, and I remember when I had told a friend that we were doing, uh, uh, embryo freezing of this for the summer, she had warned me, she's like, "It's gonna be more painful than you think, it's gonna be harder than you think, da, 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 da," and I was just like, "I am a badass, like, not me," and then you go through it, and you're just like, "Oh, you're right."
Yeah, yeah.
And so something that you thank you so much for sharing, like, the fertility journey and what it took to make the embryo that now is Zodi. Precious, precious embryo, just a gem of embryo. I could see just gold beams in that little petri dish. Um, Now we know something you alluded to, um, earlier was mentioning your type 1 diabetes, and I think you and I had chatted at different times, I think, during your pregnancy about the things that make your pregnancy high risk, let alone the color of our skin, which is real. You also have type 1 diabetes. When you thought about your personal risk going into pregnancy, so type 1 diabetes and being a Black woman, how did that factor in for you? How did you process that either emotionally or mentally?
It was scary. I mean, well, I also was a geriatric. I guess you guys have more
Wow,
humane ways of saying this
we
now.
all we all geriatric.
Geriatric pregnancy.
Yes,
Uh,
advanced maternal age, I like to say advanced maternal
Advanced
age is
maternal age.
kinder,
Yeah.
because now that I am also geriatric, I'm like, "Take that name back. Put that back in your
I don't
mouth."
wanna say that.
Advanced advanced maternal age, we are wiser, yes. Tell me about your wise
That
eggs.
too, yeah. Um, it it was scary, I'm not gonna lie, and I mean, and again, I'm super grateful for the medical team that I have. I had a perinatologist who was following me through pregnancy, of course, my OBGYN who's great, and I love her. My endocrinologist, who I've been with basically since I started working at Kaiser, so for, I don't know, like 7 years. We got much closer during this time because, first of all, they won't even let you do the egg retrieval
Yeah,
until your A1C is I mean, they want your blood sugar control to be very tight, and I think people also don't really understand much about the difference between type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes and gestational diabetes, so, in my mind, type 1 diabetes is a completely different disease. It's
it
like
is.
so, usually type 2 diabetes is more of an insulin resistance issue, so you make insulin, but maybe the insulin is not as functional, or you just don't respond as well to it as you should, and there are things that you can do with lifestyle modification, etc., diet, exercise, and medications to improve your insulin sensitivity. I don't make insulin at all, right? So my issue is not so much about insulin not working in my body, it's more about I have to basically act as my own pancreas because my pancreas does not produce any insulin. So type 1 diabetes is very hard to keep your sugars in range at all times. And then, I mean, my sugars in general, previous to thinking about pregnancy or anything like that, have been well controlled, right? So an
Yeah.
A1C around 7 is like a reasonable blood sugar, and that's kind of where I had been living before. They want your A1C less than 6.5, even just to do the egg retrieval.
Mm.
And they want your fasting sugars to be like 80, 90, and they really don't want to see spikes that last more than maybe like a half hour or something after a meal.
Jeez.
Um, those things are very, very hard to do as a type 1 diabetic, and I actually was
Yeah.
scared that I would never be able to get my sugar low enough to, and then
Jeez.
I can't have lows either, right? Because you can't just
Yeah.
aim for it to be as low as possible and say, "Well, if it's low, I'll just drink juice." I'm at work every day, right? So
Yeah.
I can't be seeing patients and doing surgery with my sugar low, right? So it's a
Yeah.
very narrow window where I have to keep my sugars, number 1, to be able to functional at work, and number
Yeah.
2, to not have highs where, the high blood sugars really are the things that affect the pregnancy more negatively. Lows and highs are both bad, but the highs are, for me at least, I think more worrisome in terms of long-term risks. So that was definitely an extra layer of constant stress. And then stress also makes your blood sugar go up too.
Mm.
There are lots of things that affect our blood sugars that are really hard to account for on a day-to-day basis. So if I have a stressful day at work, there are hormones that are going to affect my sugars that will cause it to go up. And it's like, it's very hard to anticipate that ahead of time and make adjustments to my insulin to say, okay, today might be a stressful day. Like, how much more insulin do you take for potentially a stressful day, right? And you don't know to what extent it's going to affect your sugars, right?
Yeah.
So, so that was very tough. And that's part of why I had very frequent check ins with my endocrinologist. I think in the beginning of pregnancy, we were talking like every week. Like we would go over my
Yeah.
blood sugars every week. So I have a continuous monitor that shows me my what my sugars are 24/7, and we would tweak all of my insulin ratios and my basal
Yeah.
rates, which is like the constant amount of insulin that's always going into me through an insulin pump. And I will say, I mean, I guess when you really have to do it, you do it because I mean, I did get my A1C down that low, and I think, and during pregnancy, I think at its lowest it was like 5.7 or something like that,
Impressive.
which for type 1 is like, I honestly, I was shocked. I didn't think it was possible, and to do it without having too many low blood sugars is a small miracle, I would just like to say.
I'm gonna give you
But it was
a
not.
round of applause.
Thank you, I really appreciate
Yeah.
the praise. But, that was not easy to do at all.
Mm.
And it's just like, I mean, being mindful about if I'm gonna eat something, usually I would just take my insulin when I eat, but being mindful about, okay, I actually should probably take my insulin maybe 15 or even 20 minutes before I eat. I remember one time we had lunch. I was having lunch one day and I went to a restaurant and I took my insulin because I was anticipating the meal coming out in like 15 or 20 minutes, and the meal didn't come out for like an additional, I don't know, the food was taking
Took
forever for
longer.
some reason,
Yeah.
and my sugar was just like crashing. Like, so things like that and it's, I mean, there's no way to anticipate that that's going to happen either, but there's so many things that are outside of our control that
Yeah.
are frustrating, and like, but you just have to deal with them as they come. But that's why I say it's a full-time job, like 24/7. I mean, I have alerts that go off overnight if my sugar is dropping at a certain rate, and it's going to, my machine warns me like, okay, if it keeps going like this, it's going to drop too low if you don't do something. So then I'm like, 3
Mm.
o'clock in the morning, going to the kitchen, get some orange juice. That happens not infrequently.
Yeah.
So
No,
it
but
really, yeah, it's a
this
lot.
perspective is so helpful because I think pregnancy is a lot.
It
As
is.
a person who has the honor of caring for thousands of pregnant persons, and there's many reasons why I've deferred my own potential parenthood journey. One of the reasons is because I see it live how taxing it is, and I think people oftentimes undermine how, and when I say epic, I don't mean epic and like, well, that was epic, totally rad. I mean epic as in huge, massive, like
Yeah.
truly transformative it is to go from a non-pregnant person to a pregnant person to a postpartum person slash mother. And so that's why, like, time and time again, I highlight this phrase called matrescence, because matrescence is one of the most vital transitions a person will go through from pregnancy through postpartum and beyond, similar to adolescence, right? We all remember when we, like, our early teenage years, when our hormones change, our faces change with acne, our voices changed, our bodies changed. Then
Mhm.
fast forward and you have this, like, really intense transformation that starts happening in pregnancy. And then for you and other patients who have, medical conditions that complicate it, you add a whole other layer. So we spent the past however many minutes talking about just your diabetes alone, let alone all the other things that are happening to your body as a pregnant person. And maybe
Right.
the diabetes, the type 1 diabetes helped or caused you to focus in on that, and you everything else was just like, "Oh, around looking pain, oh, nausea," like, maybe or maybe not. I wanna hear from you, but I think that there are too many times when patients are surprised by how intense pregnancy is,
Mhm.
feeling all these ranges of symptoms, and I think it's due in part to society. I think that people often just, like, again, undermine and undervalue, underappreciate what it means to be pregnant if you're fortunate enough to be pregnant, let alone to birth a baby, however way you do that. And so when people are, like, coming in and saying, "I feel this, I feel that," like, "What's happening to my body?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah, you're growing a human inside your body." Like,
That
this
part.
is this is huge,
Yeah.
and of course, your organs within your body are going to, like, not protest per se, but they are gonna speak out, and things are gonna change and symptoms are gonna evolve, let alone, again, when you have a medical condition like type 1 diabetes. Do you feel like the type 1 diabetes in your pregnancy, it sounded like you had to do a lot to keep yourself safe, like, when I'm hearing you as your friend, but also as a doctor, like, getting alarms in the middle of the night, like, being like, "Hey, you're about to crash or wake up or you're gonna, like, be in a coma," like, that
Yeah.
freaks me out, that stresses
Yeah.
me out. Do you feel like that how did that play into the rest of your pregnancy experience? Does that make sense? Like, was that kind of your
Yeah.
primary focus and everything else was kind of like, "Okay, like, she's growing, she's doing fine, ultrasounds look good," or, what were the other experiences for you?
You know, so first of all, I was actually pretty lucky. The first trimester and second trimester, just in terms of symptoms, I actually felt okay. I mean, other than just fatigue, like I didn't have
Mhm.
morning sickness. I really wasn't in a lot of pain. I was pretty comfortable, like from a pregnancy standpoint.
Yeah.
So luckily I could kind of focus all of my energy and attention on the diabetes, and that was really the main thing that I was focused on too, is just trying to keep my sugars in the best control as possible, because I think a lot of the other things that just happen during pregnancy are just fluke things that you probably don't have a lot of control over. But the sugars was that was the one thing that I felt like I really needed to work hard at, to
Yeah.
try to give number 1, to give Zodi the best chance at being healthy and, and making it.
Yeah.
But then also for myself, because it's not like the mortality rate for type 1 diabetes is 0, the
Yeah.
perinatal mortality rate. I mean, I think I had looked up that I wanna say type 1 diabetics are, like, at a 10 to 20%, or no, it's I think a 10 to 20 times higher risk of, like, perinatal death. I wanna say I
Mm.
so I try
Yeah.
not to look that up anymore, because I just don't want that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
But, like, I mean, but there are definitely real risks involved, and actually my OB, who was very confident that everything would be fine, which I love her for that, but I also was like, "No, I'm, like, genuinely afraid that, like, I might not make it." Like, this is a real,
Mm.
and in retrospect, of course, I'm like, "Okay, I don't know why I was that worried," but I also am not someone
Yeah.
who always assumes that, like, I won't end up being that statistic. Like, I don't have that mentality. I realize that bad things are gonna happen to some people, and I don't feel like there's some magical protection that I have that's gonna, you know, make it such that I'm not gonna be that one person who something happens to. Like, I understand the risks that are involved, but it did make me feel a little bit more comfortable that she would kind of chuckle when I would say that, and I was like, "Okay, I guess that means that she really thinks I'm gonna make it," which is
Yeah.
good. I mean,
Yeah.
and I brought up my concerns also about as a Black woman and, and
Yeah.
then the increased risks from that. So then now I have 2 things that are, like, not necessarily acting in my favor, both for me and for the baby. So,
Yeah.
but just having that support, I think, was really helpful. But the challenge again about the diabetes thing, going back to that, and I'm sorry to keep going back to it, but it was a huge, I mean, it was a huge focus of, of mine during pregnancy, which
Yeah.
turned out to actually have no consequences other than I was induced at 39 weeks, because apparently that's standard for type 1 diabetic. And I'm now grateful for that, because by the time I made it to 30 9 weeks, I was done. I was just like,
You're just like,
"Get
"Get
her
this
out!
baby out of
Get
me."
her out!" I'm so over
Yeah.
this. I was so swollen and just over it.
Yeah.
So I was actually very grateful that I was induced. But normally, I mean, I feel responsible for taking care of my sugars because I know that it's going to affect me in the long run. And I have a responsibility to myself to try to be the healthiest version of myself I can be. But now it's like I have to keep my sugars in range because there's like a whole other person whose entire life is dependent on like what I'm doing with my blood sugars right now because these are, however she's born. I mean, that's what she's going to be dealing with, whatever issues might come from
Yeah.
my condition for the rest of her life. So the stakes were very high.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm super lucky that really, other than just needing a lot more monitoring and, lots of NSTs, which again was like, I would have to go for non-stress tests, I think twice a week and maybe during the third trimester.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. So it's just, these are also things that I don't know why I didn't realize that I would need to do so many of those, but apparently you need to do that. Everything turned out fine though. So
Yeah.
Zodi and I are both very lucky.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'd like to take a moment to tell you this is my passion project based on years of experience as an OBGYN doctor. I aim to empower moms and moms-to-be and those in the pregnancy and postpartum care space. If you appreciate what I do, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share with your friends so we can reach more people like you. You can visit goldenhour.fm for more information, resources, and all other episodes. If you have any requests, suggestions, or questions for future episodes, please email me at hello@goldenhour.fm or leave us a comment at goldenhour.fm on Instagram. Speaking to moms who are listening, who are either type 1 diabetics or have some chronic condition that they know that they are bringing into the pregnancy, or moms of color, what would be words of advice or personal reflections that you'd want to share with them, given your experience?
That's another good question. I think for me, seeing success stories was really helpful. So
Mm,
I'm not someone who spends a lot of time on YouTube typically, but I did find myself just searching kind of like for, okay, who's been through this? What was their experience like? Like, so just to see women who were type 1 diabetics, and they're like, there aren't really that many of us. Like, I have a few friends who are type 1 diabetics, but not many, and not I don't know, I really don't have any women who are close to me who are type 1. So I think just not having seen any success stories
mm,
was tough, like in real life. And obviously my endocrinologist told me that she's had many patients who she's seen through pregnancy and who do fabulously.
yeah,
But I think just actually looking at people's stories and seeing them share kind of what was happening at this stage of pregnancy and that stage, and they have totally healthy babies and things worked out well. I think that just gave me a little bit of hope. So just seeing real
yeah,
people and not so much focusing on like Googling like all these statistics that obviously are going to make you feel very scared, but
yeah,
also focusing on, okay, there are lots of people who go on to have very healthy babies, live normal lives. Like, so it's not, even though there are risks, for the most part, people actually do really well. But I think just putting faces to these stories and kind of like hearing people talk about their experiences on YouTube for me was definitely helpful.
yeah. And you're part of it now, right? There's part of
I
doing
am
this
now.
podcast.
Yes.
Part of doing this podcast is amplifying voices like you that for me as an OBGYN, I always say, and maybe it's similar for ophthalmology, that my arch nemesis are Dr. Google and Nurse TikTok, because there's so many times that patients come in appropriately fearful and anxious because they've heard stories or seen statistics and they don't have any context for it. And so
Right.
part of doing this podcast is to be a part of the productive noise that is out there, and you yourself are like a real-time success story. I've been impressed with you day one, but even and I had inklings and ideas externally about what I thought your pregnancy experience would be, but to have you detail out makes me even more proud of how you prioritize your own health for the benefit of Zodi and your life and your life that you're building with Angus. And so I'm sure there are women and their families listening now who are like, yeah, that's our success story. This is our a reminder that we're going to make it through and we're going to be just fine. So kudos to you, girl. Kudos to
Thank
you.
you.
Okay, so you mentioned the 39-week induction. Yeah, how was labor? Did you go into labor with any trepidation, or are you at this point just like, "I feel like a beach whale, get this baby out of me, let go?" Like, how are you
The
feeling at
latter,
that
the
point?
latter.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
I was like, because before I was kinda thinking like, well, my sugars actually have been really well controlled, like, all of the growth ultrasounds have been looking okay, like, there's really not been any red flags during the pregnancy, so a part of me was kinda thinking like, "Ma do I really wanna be induced? Like, can I just let her come when she wants to come?" But then I realized, like, there is a real chance of stillbirth, okay, because the placenta does
Mm,
start to, like, die, and earlier for folks with diabetes, so I did realize that the risks of induction were less than the risks of trying to let the pregnancy go on and on and on forever, and like I
yeah.
told you, as I was getting toward the end of the pregnancy, as my feet swelled up to the point where there were 0 pairs of shoes that I could wear by the end, and I just literally was like, I can't even, like I can barely walk, like, I can't even do anything. I also had every risk factor for preeclampsia and didn't get it,
Yeah.
which I was
Yeah.
so relieved about.
Praise, praise.
That is I mean, that can be a sign of preeclampsia, so if your legs are
Yeah,
just
yeah.
unusually swollen, that you're I mean, everyone gets swollen legs too, so it's hard, but I did not have
Just let your
preeclampsia,
OB know.
thankfully.
Good, good.
But yeah, I was ready. I can't say I was terribly scared about the induction process necessarily, but I was just worried about labor in general, like whether it was going to be a natural birth or an induced labor. Like I was a little worried, and one of the things that I feel a little guilty about, especially as a doctor who went through residency, was that I was so unsure about the fact that I would be cared for by residents, and I really feel bad to say that, but it was like I felt like
No,
I
that's
already just
real.
had so many layers of risk on top of just the inherent risk that all women have. So just like you said, as a woman of color, as an older mom, as a diabetic mom, I was like, I feel like I have enough. I feel like I have enough risks. I feel like there's enough things that could go wrong at this point that residents actually I feel like in some cases are more thorough and like more diligent because they're like 100% committed to what they do as are attendings, but I mean there's just an extra little oomph that I think we have as residents that I actually
Yeah.
appreciated, and all the residents who cared for me were fantastic. But I think going into it, I was like, "Do I need that extra little layer of like of I don't know, of just something." So, anyway, there was no other option. So it was gonna be what it was
Yeah.
gonna be. Like,
Yeah.
residents work at the hospital where I delivered, and that just it was what it was. So, anyhow, it ended up not making a difference. I don't think it would have made any difference whether I had residents or strictly attendings who were caring for me. But there were many stages and phases of of labor.
Yeah.
And I think
That's
I had
true.
all the things. I had all the things. So like I
What'd you
had
dabble in?
I'm like, now I'm trying to remember. I should have read my notes from my because like we have access to our notes through Kaiser. I should have
Yeah.
read all my notes, but it was like what are all the different I had meso,
Yeah. You have a
uh
balloon?
I had a balloon. They did artificial rupture of membranes. Is that how you
You
call it?
got
I forgot.
Pitocin? Yeah,
Got
yeah.
pitocin.
AROM. You got Pitocin.
I got
Yeah.
I got all the things. I got
What
all the
about
things.
for pain? What'd you do for pain?
An
She's like, "I just
epidural, which
grit and
saved
bared
me.
it." Oh,
I had no. I
okay.
had, oh my no, I knew I wanted an epidural. I was like, I also don't
Okay.
need that extra layer of just being of having so much pain that I can't think. Like I wanted to be present and I wanted to try to make the experience as minimally traumatic for myself as possible. And
Yeah.
I didn't want to rely on like intravenous medications as much too. So the epidural was I would do like I would do it 100 times. Like, I will
Give
never
me
have a baby without an epidural if I can help it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I had the epidural and did not regret it at all. And then
There were a couple of things that you I'll just pause because there's a couple of things that you said that I wanted to highlight. Number 1 was just induction, right? That I think that as an OB, I feel like most of my patients come into pregnancy, again, with this glamorized sense of how it's gonna be, and then they're pregnant, like, "Oh, wow, this was much tougher. Okay, well, now my birth here's my birth plan. I'm gonna get exactly what I want. It's just like my wedding day, so I'm gonna get the music I want, the mood I want, the vibe I want." I'm like, "No, no, no, no." Sadly, there's so much out of your control, and so it's the same patients too who are, like, surprised if something either develops in pregnancy or they have something in pregnancy where they need to be induced, and I think it's really helpful to hear as a patient, because for me as a doctor, I think there's sometimes there's just, there's this sense of like us versus them. Not
Mm.
in the most ideal situations, you've spent months building rapport and a sense of connection so that when you are making medical advice, patients understand this really comes from a genuine place of care and desire for good outcomes. But sometimes it can feel like that sense of like, oh, I'm the big bad mean doctor saying you must be induced, but it's really helpful to hear you pause and say, yeah, for me, the benefits of induction outweighed the risks of stillbirth, right?
Yeah,
Which is
for sure.
really scary. And
Of
for
course.
every induction, really, most inductions come from because we're trying to avoid that really rare but scary outcome.
Right, you're not recommending it for funsies. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
no,
there's a
no,
reason. There's a
there's a
reason,
reason.
right?
But it's hard because I think that most of us live life with a really strong sense of if we're fortunate, let
Yeah.
me acknowledge that if there's privilege to have a locus of control, and but most of us who can afford that privilege work really hard to control as many elements as we can. I think some of the most control freaks that I admire are type 1 diabetics because you have to control so much to keep you safe and alive, let alone, you're saying you brought your hemoglobin A1C down from, like, 7-ish down to 5.7 pre-pregnancy and through pregnancy, like, that takes a lot of control. But fast forward in labor, you have to in some ways relinquish that, which also goes to, like, your piece about, having your care at a hospital that have learners. Like, you and I all learned one way, right? We, like,
Yeah,
thank goodness to the institutions that taught us. But
yes.
I'm not gonna lie, part of me doing this podcast is so I can be honest with people. I am not gonna lie, I personally don't necessarily know if I do choose to have or when I do choose to start a family at some point, if I want learners in my own care because I have my own very strong opinions of it, or it
And
happens to be the
fears probably,
hospital.
right? I mean, they're genuine
Yeah.
fears that are based on real things that have happened to real people.
Yeah. And that might be something I will have to get over time. It happens to be the hospital I work at. We are starting our own residency program in 2026. So I likely would, depending on where we live in the world, but I would likely deliver at that hospital because I want to deliver with my team. And learners may or may not be involved. And I'm gonna be like, oh, I have to get over that too
Yeah,
on my own, but it's really interesting. I appreciate you saying that it's ironic because we all became doctors the same way. We
right.
were the med students on rounds who like were at deliveries or like in eye cases, fast forward the residents who were like, yes, being taken through these cases by really, like intelligent, thoughtful, diligent attendings and fellows. And so it's inevitable, but it's like that feeling of when it's your body being like, do I want my body to be learned upon? I don't know, but I appreciate that you let the team in. So, yeah, those are things that I definitely wanted, to acknowledge, and I love me an epidural. I mean, I haven't had the need to be epiduralized, but I think it's always I say this, and maybe it sounds really patronizing, but I always think it's really sweet because a lot of my first time moms will say, like, "Yeah, I wanna try to go without an epidural." And I'm always just like, you please, try. More power to you, but you've never experienced pain like this before. There's a reason why they say like the pain of labor like is up there with pancreatitis and passing a kidney stone, right? Like it's real,
Yeah,
and I think there's so many different ways to manage that, and I've had many conversations on this podcast already about, like, natural birth, home birth, etcetera, and all that takes a lot of mental prep work, but I feel like for
yeah,
most people, when you're in it, you're like, "Okay, I love my body, I believe in my body, it's doing something like, incredibly challenging, and it deserves some rest and respite, and it's interesting that you said that you wanted to have your mental faculties, you really wanted to be present, because I think
yeah,
that there's some people who say, "Oh, I don't want pain medications because I wanna be all in," but I've also had conversations with people like you and other guests on the episode and friends, where the epidural actually let them kind of have this actual need of release where they weren't so focused and consumed by the pain that they can really look around. Like my favorite is like seeing patients in triage where like I'm admitting them and they're like screaming at me and they just are like refuse to talk to me, just like get the F out of my face, Dr. Say, just get me in a room so I get my epidural. And then they get the epidural and I come in and they're like, oh, have I met you yet? I'm like, yeah, I'm Dr. Say, I
wherever
admitted you like,
you yeah, that
oh, great. Great to meet you. And they're smiling and they're like a totally different person. Or the patients who apologize. They're like, sorry, that wasn't me. That was me pre-epidural. This is who I really am.
yeah,
So good to see you now.
believe
Anyways,
it.
but yeah, just really want to highlight that there's so much in what you're sharing that are I think common themes for others and common common concerns as well. Okay, so we're fast forwarding. You have the epidural, it's a dream, and it sounds like did you end up with a vaginal delivery?
I
The
did.
Zodi?
I did.
Yeah, how was the pushing stage for you?
I wanna say I pushed for close to 2 hours, I wanna say.
Not bad. Not bad for
Not
a first-time
bad,
mom.
not bad.
Yeah,
They said I was doing a good job. I couldn't see what
yeah.
was going
I mean,
on down there, but they said they
I mean,
said it was effective.
I remember med school, you and I, there's like a group of us that were always at the gym, like, regularly.
Yes.
So it all was worth it. It
It
was
was
all worth it
I don't know if it was exercising that part, but the pushing was
somehow.
effective.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the pushing was okay. I actually they at one point they were I think well, to me that 2 hours didn't seem that long, but they were
Yeah.
I don't know. There was a sense that I was getting that they were thinking like, "Okay, are we gonna have to pivot to something else?" I mean, they didn't mention anything about a C-section or anything like that. I don't know if they were
Yeah.
thinking about, like, vacuum or forceps or something else, and I was just like,
Yeah.
"I can do this. Like, just let me do
Yes.
this. I still have more in me. I can just let me try more." So they were like, "Okay, fine." Because I think there was nothing that was too alarming that it wasn't like they need to speed things along because they were really worried. I think they were just thinking maybe I would, like, poop out or something.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so it was vaginal delivery. There were no assistive devices or anything like that. The girl was not that small, actually, it turned out, because she was, like, 8 pounds, 3 ounces, I wanna say,
Yeah, that's
which
proper.
is a
And
decent baby.
had she stayed another week, she would have been like a 9-pounder
But, yeah,
probably.
another reason why I was super grateful to have been induced at that time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, anyway, it was not without trauma that she was birthed. At first, they were like, okay, when they said, "Okay, there's a tear," I was like, "Okay," figured there would be.
Yeah.
At first, they were like, "Oh, it looks like 2nd degree." Nope, turned out it was a 3rd degree.
Ooh.
So, that was not nice. And
Yeah.
I had prepared for trying to reduce my chances of tearing
Yeah.
with
Did you like perineal massage and stuff?
I did.
Yeah.
I wanna say well, I guess I shouldn't say it didn't help because I mean, it could have been a 4th, maybe it would have been a 4th degree otherwise, I don't know. So maybe it did help,
Yeah.
but a 3rd degree I wasn't super happy about, and the recovery from that was not beautiful. I mean, I
That's
had
no,
to
it's rough.
It's rough. I mean, I had to sit on one of those donut pillows or whatever, that inflatable donut,
Yeah.
that inner tube
Yeah.
thing for, like, a while. That was
How
not
long was
that
a while for you?
I wanna say, like, for 2 weeks, really, I couldn't sit down comfortably. And then even after that, it still was things just didn't feel quite right for, I wanna say, like, over a month.
Yeah.
And just getting up out of bed was, like, not that easy. So that was not ideal. Also, even so after the delivery, you gotta deliver the baby, then you gotta deliver the placenta, which is, like, totally the afterthought, but, like, that thing needs to come out, and it
Yeah.
didn't. It didn't wanna come out. It was just like, "Nope, we're we're gonna stay in here." And then so the team was like, "Okay, the placenta's not coming." They did some massage, etcetera, it wasn't coming. So they had to manually extract the placenta.
So I wanna help people understand. So manual extraction means that for me as the obstetrician, I'm actually putting my and not to be too graphic, but I wanna keep it real.
Yes.
I'm
Please keep it
actually
real, Anna
putting
June.
I'm putting my entire arm, the whole arm doesn't go into the uterus, but the entire arm ends up, from the vaginal opening into the uterus because you have to feel for the top of the uterus internally where the placenta is and help use your fingers to detach it. So that is a really for the people listening, I want you to all applaud Meron because that is really intense. That is
Yeah,
super intense.
it is.
But you luckily was your epidural working well enough for that part?
No, I mean, the epidural was working. So the epidural was working. I mean, so
Yeah.
the delivery part of delivering the baby felt like a relief. Like, I mean, it actually, even with the tearing, like, and with while they were suturing, etc., like, I could tolerate that. Like, it was definitely
Yeah.
tolerable pain. The manual extraction was real mean. That was real mean. I know they had to do it, but it was real mean. And they had given me I want to say some cocktail of, like, fentanyl and something else
Yeah, probably.
right before, right? Because they were like,
Yeah.
this is not going to be pleasant. And they were
Yeah.
right. They were totally right. That was worse than that was worse than delivering the baby.
I
Because I guess
believe
it was
it.
just stuck. I don't know why. I mean, they sent the placenta to pathology and it looked totally normal. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It just liked it in there.
Yeah, it's just like, "Meron, you made a really good home. We won't stay. Don't kick us out." I thought we had a thing
Yeah,
going.
yeah, it's I don't know why that happened, but
Yeah.
that was unpleasant, but it had to be done. It had to be done.
It had to be done. Yeah, I mean, they were preventing, if it was there much longer, it could have led to hemorrhage. Did you have excessive bleeding after? Were they able to get it out on
Oh, no,
time?
I had that too, yeah, I had to have a blood transfusion.
Meron, you're pulling the classic mare dog where it's just, like, subtle, like, "Oh, yeah, like, birth is fine, I got my epidural. Oh, no, I had a third-degree tear. I had a retained placenta, and I hemorrhaged and got a blood transfusion." That's 4
All the things.
4
I
complications.
did, but I told you I had all the things. I mean, like, I had all the things. I had all
Yeah,
the
you tried
things.
well, oh my gosh, fast or rewind 20 minutes ago. I thought you were gonna all the things like, I tried the misoprostol and the
Well,
Pitocin and the
that
balloon and
too,
meso. I was
all
like,
the
"Oh,
things,
cute, cute, cute."
all the
You had,
things,
like, all the things at the beginning of labor and you also had
and
all
all
the
the
things at the
things
end.
after. So, yeah, I had all the things. I guess except a
What was
C-section, that would have been the only other thing that I didn't have. Yeah.
as a doctor, when all these postpartum, early postpartum complications were happening to you as a doctor, what was going through? Because I always wonder, I think that for our patients who are not in medicine, it's like, okay, these things are happening to me. I don't really know that much, but ideally trust the team. And I think good OBs like myself, midwives and docs, we like debrief afterwards, etc. But you're a doctor,
Yeah.
you're an ophthalmologist, but you did your rotation, third year of med school, and a little bit more about OB than non-medical people. Like as these things were happening, we were just like, shit, I'm along for the ride. Was it anxiety provoking, or were you just like, "I just trust this team, like, just take care of me, let's go?"
A little bit of both. I would
Yeah.
like to say that I didn't, like, harass them for every piece of data about what was going on. I mean, I did wanna let them kinda do their thing because even though I did go through medical school, the people who are taking care of me know way more than me about what's going, like, I
Yeah.
don't know. So, I have to just relinquish some control and say, "Hey, like, you guys have seen this happen so many more times than I have, and, like, when was the last time I
Yeah.
saw a person go through labor? Was, like, 10 years ago." I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, so there was an element of, like, if they're saying that I need a blood transfusion, I should trust that. I did ask, like, just what my blood pressure and heart rate were because I feel like that's just I mean, that would be a good thing to know. I don't know. I was pretty I wanna say my heart rate was, like, in the 1s and then, like, my blood pressure was, like, 90 something over, like,
Yeah.
50 or
Take some fluids. Yeah,
they were like,
take something back.
"We think you need the blood." And I was like, "Really? I really need it?" And they were like, "Yeah." And then I after they said that though, even in spite of my vitals being not so compatible with life for too long, I felt pretty bad. I mean,
Yeah.
felt like I was like, okay, actually, now that you're saying it, like I feel pretty weak and lightheaded. I mean, I was on my back, so I'm pretty sure if I had been sitting upright or tried to stand up, I would have probably passed out. I mean, so
Mm.
anyway, I needed the blood. My poor mom, 'cause my mom and my sister were there for labor,
Yeah.
as was Angus, of course. And,
Yeah.
my mom was like, "Can I give her my blood?" Because I think she was just nervous about
Aw.
it was the cutest thing.
Your mom is the
I was like,
cutest
"She's
person
the
in
cutest."
the world already, and she's
So,
just like, Anything for my
I
daughter."
know, because I think she also just was nervous about the transfusion part, which, I mean, I was a little
Yeah.
nervous about it too, but another little complicating thing was, like, I had these antibodies that we don't know where they came
Of
from. It was
course.
like anti-E or
Yeah.
and anti-C or something. Anyway, there was some
Yeah.
so I actually needed, like, special blood too that they had to, like, have ready ahead of time, right? Because they had to screen it for all these antibodies. So I was
Yeah,
like
yeah,
so I
yeah.
needed, like, special blood. And of course, you can't just take blood from a family member anyway. She didn't realize that, of
No.
course, but
I
it was just
know.
so cute. Like, no, like, they have to give me blood from, like, the bank, and it has to be, like, screened for all these different things and then, like, prepared
Yeah.
and ready. So, anyway, I got the blood, I know I needed it, then they gave me an iron infusion, I wanna say the next day as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I still I wonder if that I mean, I know having diabetes affects lactation, as does postpartum hemorrhage.
Yeah.
And I feel like and then my breastfeeding journey, which is a whole other thing that we can't even get into during this episode, but my breastfeeding journey was pretty rough. Like my milk didn't come in for a while. Like I was pumping and breastfeeding. Like it was like barely a drop was coming out for many days. So that was another thing that
Yeah.
was frustrating because I did really want to exclusively breastfeed if possible. We ended up
Yeah.
combo feeding, but because I didn't want. want her to starve. I was like, I'm really not making anything. Like the poor baby is gonna starve. So we had to give formula, which formula is
Yeah.
not the devil, okay? Like,
It's not. But no, but seriously, kind of
yeah,
2 things to reflect on that you shared. One is the third person experience, the experience of the support person. So, all these things are happening to you and you have a great sense of humor. So you're retelling the story in retrospect with, like, some great, like, funny, like, sarcastic statements here and there. But I could imagine your mom and your sister and Angus sitting in that room seeing, like, the team saying, "Oh, it's third degree, it's a duper tear," and likely, depending on who delivered you, escalating in terms of which team member, because obviously the intern, or hopefully the intern, was not doing your repair. Hope it was like a chief or an attendee.
no. Well, I don't know. I think she might have
Probably
been
wasn't
like
an
a
intern.
second year or something.
Yeah, probably
I don't think it
wasn't.
was the
Yeah,
intern, but
someone was chiefing a second year through it probably, but,
the
probably
attending
not
was
the
there.
intern. Yeah,
But
yeah,
I'm pretty sure at that point also there was just so much going on. I was like so
yeah.
anemic and like the baby was out. And by that time I was just like, I don't even know.
Whatever.
Like just
Yeah,
guys just do whatever you guys
but
need to do. I don't even know who are you? Go ahead and do whatever you need to do. Like I just don't.
but thinking about, Angus and your mom and your sis watching these things and what that experience was for them and how they, you know, again, you're telling these stories with a lightheartedness that either comes from, the fact that this event happened, almost 11 months ago, or because you're Meron and you are strong and resilient. Another patient would remark on the same experiences and refer to it as trauma, right? We have, I think
Yeah.
for me as an OB, and part of the many other reasons why this podcast is in existence is because as beautiful as birth is, as beautiful as the outcome of birth, like Zodi is, people sometimes walk away from the experience feeling real trauma, and not only the birther, but the support people, their family members, their partners. And so, um, as you kind of process retelling your story for me, and you likely have retold the story for other friends, would you say that that was a traumatic experience for you? Do you still hold that trauma? And does that kind of play into your thoughts as you think about baby number 2? Or would you say that you're like, "Oh, that was something that happened to me, but I survived, my daughter survived, I'm okay." What is that for you?
A couple great questions also. A couple of things. I think the even though the experience obviously had many various hiccups that many women also experience, I think the amount of time that that trauma happened, it is trauma. And humor is a coping mechanism. So we all have our different some people, you know, dabble in this and that. People use all kinds of different things to get through hard times. I think for me that's always been humor. But it definitely is trauma. It was not as pleasant or particularly smooth experience by any stretch of the imagination. So this is the humor is not to undermine the seriousness of what happened. I think
Mm,
again, all is well that ends well, but it was trauma. I think it's over such a short period of time. Like labor and delivery was only like a couple of days, right? So I think in comparison, actually to the first couple of months postpartum, that for me was actually the traumatic time, more so than the delivery. In spite of all of these things that happened to me,
yeah,
I would have gone through like 10 deliveries to not have to experience the first 3 months actually after delivering. Because I feel
yeah,
like number 1, just because the tear was bad, I was just physically, like, in pain afterward and just not really mobile, like, I'm used to just being independent, getting up and going and doing things, and then
yeah,
just not being able to do that was tough, and I was lucky that I had so much support. I have Angus, and then we actually live with our in-laws, so grandparents were also very hands-on and willing to help. So I had a lot of support, and then my family as well. I mean, they live like an hour away and were coming and visiting often. So that helped a lot. But physically, I did not feel well for the first, I would say really for the first 3 months. I kind of felt like I was in
yeah,
like a I don't know, like a haze, and I think part of that was because I was still probably a little anemic. I don't know, like I just felt really just weak, exhausted, and of course there's sleep deprivation, right? Like you're caring
mhm,
for a baby that requires you to be awake like every couple of hours, 24/7. So
yeah,
I used to tell people like I just felt like death. I don't know what other word to use. I just felt like death for the first 3 months.
yeah,
It was really not good, and like, you hear people talk about, like, baby blues or postpartum depression, but I'm like, I don't even know if it was that. I don't well, I guess I don't know. I've never experienced true depression before, but
yeah,
it wasn't like a mood thing. It was just a very physical feeling of I just feel so just unwell and not like myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it's just in comparison actually to the postpartum period, the labor, like it was just so, it
It
was
felt like a
such a
blip in
short
time.
time. Yeah. And that when I think back on pregnancy, labor, and postpartum, the part that I would say I am not looking forward to the most when and if I have this experience again is actually like the first couple of months postpartum. But I think also just like now having a baby who's like happy and healthy and so much fun and like I feel like at least there was a reward at the end. Like there are some
Yeah.
like tragic things that happen where you don't even get like, you know, people just get sick randomly from whatever it is, and right, and it's not like they get a
Yeah.
baby at the end. It's just like you're just sick, you know, for no reason. So at least
Yeah.
there was some, you know, I felt like there was something that we were like it, that made it all worth it, I think.
Yeah.
And I try to remember that. But yeah, but postpartum, I think, is another area that's just so overlooked and like you just don't think about or maybe prepare for enough. And I don't know what I would have honestly done differently to prepare for it, but yeah, just physically not myself, not energetic, just like just everything just felt like a struggle. But it's so much better now.
Yeah.
It's so much
Yeah.
better now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
no, but it's true, and I think that, I alluded to several different things that inspired the podcast. The biggest piece was actually the postpartum period, and this general sense that the healthcare system that I work and then constricted by
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily pay homage to what you just described. You know, there's the physicality of labor and delivery, which can be very acute, but still have lasting physical effects, whether it's, you know, perinatal recovery or C-section recovery, let alone the sleep deprivation and the exhaustion that goes along with it, and the breastfeeding struggles. I mean, we can make a whole I can get you back. We do a whole episode just on that. Breastfeeding struggles, the identity shift, literally feeling not like yourself,
Yeah.
and the conflict of being like, "Well, we really wanted this baby. We went through IVF. I injected my ass for daily for weeks for this baby, and she is beautiful because we know that mixed race babies are the best." Anyway, um, but I am biased because I did marry a Turkish man.
Yeah.
Anywho,
Oh, yeah.
but you also, you know, look at her and be like, I love you. You were totally worth it. But like this internal conflict and ebbs of guilt where you're like, yeah, I love you. It's great, but I also feel some bit of ambivalence because where am I in this?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I think I wanna highlight that. I think that there are so many times where people feel so shocked about, like, who they are post-baby versus pre-baby, and I really think it's appreciating that we're all ever evolving, and I wanna acknowledge, as someone who's had the honor of watching so many people make that transition from pregnancy to postpartum into motherhood and parenthood, is that is a huge evolution that deserves not only recognition, but that much more support. And so conversations like this are my way of hoping to highlight that, and maybe one day we'll go up to like the White House and they'll create a policy where we like, you know, postpartum care isn't just postpartum visits at 2 weeks and 6 weeks. Hell no, it should be an entire year. And we'll get there maybe eventually. But really, like I appreciate you saying that, yeah, like as traumatic as that, you know, that hour around your birth was, you're like, no, girl, those 3 months were
Yeah.
real. And that's honestly actually
That was the real deal. Yeah.
that was a real
That was
deal.
the real deal.
If Meron now could talk to, you know, Meron a year ago, I know you said there wasn't like you couldn't really think of you know, concrete advice to give, but what words of uplifting or what words of encouragement or would you give that person, knowing that you survived and endured the early 3 months postpartum?
That is a very deep question, Anna.
Yeah, I like to keep it deep.
You know, I think honestly, I'm really grateful. Like I told you, I was not someone who went into pregnancy thinking, you know, the odds are still in my favor. You know, there's this whatever X chance of this, X chance of that happening, but in general, still the odds are in my favor that things will work out. But I think if there was some crystal ball that I could have had to say like things really will work out and like you're going to be a happy mom and like you're going to have a healthy baby and like You're going to thrive again, at some point, but just not immediately. I wish there was some way to just know that in advance. Short of that, honestly, it's like there's always going to be some level of worry. But I do. So can I I'm going to spin the question into something I just want to share. Is that okay? And this is particularly for Black women. So, well, the first part, pregnancy braids. Have you heard of pregnancy? Have you
No,
heard this
tell me
term?
more.
Okay, so this is so I had braids up until like a few days ago in my hair, and I didn't even discover how much of a time saver and just a lifesaver braids can be for us until like a couple of years ago when I was growing my hair out because I wanted to get rid of the relaxer, which is another story that actually has to do with because of all these things that I had heard about how relaxers actually can be associated with like different types of like uterine cancers. And don't quote me, it's
Yeah.
something along. Anyway, I was like, you
Yeah,
know what?
yeah.
I don't need this. I just don't need this anymore. So I didn't want a
Yeah.
relaxer anymore. So I started getting braids just during that transitional phase of like growing my natural hair out. But braids are such a time saver. And it's like especially after you have a baby, like if I had not braided my hair a couple weeks before, seriously, I'm
Yeah.
saying it's kind of funny, but it's like if I had not braided my hair a couple of weeks before giving birth, like I would have dreadlocks, like not on purpose dreadlocks. I would just have
Believe it.
I would just have one dreadlock. I don't know
What?
because it takes
I
so much
believe it.
time and energy. And you don't think about hair as like it's not a big deal, but for Black women, actually, it's kind of a
Yes.
huge deal, and it could be
Thank you.
a huge burden. So pregnancy braids are like such a game changer, and I actually found like threads online of women talking about like how do you time the braid appointment, right? Because sometimes you need to request them ahead of time. And it's like, I was
Yeah.
induced. So at least I was like, hopefully I won't go into labor early and I know when I'm going to have the baby. So I can just get the
Yeah.
braids like, I don't know, like a week and a half before my induction date.
Yeah.
It should work out. But you don't always know when the baby's going to come. So I guess just get them early enough that hopefully the braids will still look decent on your delivery day so you could take some nice pictures. But pregnancy braids were, like, absolutely critical, and I don't know what I will do if I don't have braids. If I give birth again and I don't have braids, I'm suing. Like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I seriously, it saved
It's a
me
game
so much
changer.
time and energy and just thought, because
Yeah.
you just don't have to think about your hair for, like, over 2 months,
Yeah.
which is great because 'cause you're not gonna have time, okay? You're not gonna have time.
Yeah.
Even this natural thing, like, this still takes time to, like, comb through
Yeah.
and whatever, apply products, it's and all this stuff,
I mean,
so
unlike Beyonce, most of us don't wake up like this. Like, your hair looks amazing, you look fly, but, like, there's so much effort, and it's actually hilarious, and I'm even though I'm not a pregnant person, I feel what you're saying is so validating because I'll get in tips with my loving and lovely Turkish husband because he doesn't understand. I too decided that I didn't want to get cancer from relaxers, so I
yeah.
started growing out my hair, I think when I was in residency, and we have different genes, so my curls are real tight and real short, but I'm still proud of them. They're
They're beautiful.
growing,
They're
growing
beautiful.
slow, but they're getting there. But it's true that, like, it does take time. Like, I have my day where I wash my hair and I do my twists and, like, the day is gone and I don't mind, but, like, when life is really busy, AKA you have a newborn, I 100% like, I'm like, "There's no way either
No
I'm gonna
way.
shave it all off," which I've had actually patients do, and they look great.
Now, I've been tempted to do that on many
Yeah.
occasions, and that's
Yeah.
usually when I'm in between braids. When the braids are in, I'm fine. In between, I'm like, "What?
Just get rid of all this. Yeah,
Why don't I
like,
just
get
keep
rid
the
of it.
braids in a
But
little
no,
longer?"
but it's real, and that's like one of the subtle things that you, like, there's a lot of advice that I try to give and again, advice that naturally, organically comes up in conversations on the podcast, but like that, bing, bing, bang,
Yes,
pregnancy
pregnancy
braids.
braids,
I
gotta
love
do
that.
it. Gotta do it. And
Yeah.
then the other thing, which is not necessarily for immediately postpartum, but just later, like, I just I just don't have time, like, for anything that's, like, not I need my morning routine to be like that, you know what I mean?
Tight.
Because
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like I only have a couple of short windows to hang out with my daughter before work, I have maybe, like, 45 minutes, and then when I get home super late because I have a long commute. I live pretty far from work now with living with the in-laws. So I
Yeah.
only have, like, 45 minutes also after I get home before she has to go to bed. So, like, I can't spend all my time in the morning, like, putting makeup on, like, who even oh my god, never. Like, I just go looking crusty. So, this is just how it is. This is what they get. This is what the patients get. Sorry, guys. Like, I don't
Also,
have
you're a
time.
natural beauty, it's fine,
But
but
I mean,
I
it's
get it.
I try to just moisturizer, sunscreen, like, and that's all I can do. But I just like wear the same thing to work. Like I just don't like I don't even want to spend time picking out an outfit or ironing anything
Yeah,
or looking. I bought 3 outfits from Figs, okay? I bought 3
yeah,
scrub sets and that's what I just cycle through. That's what I wear every
yeah.
day. Like I just need it to be simple and I just don't
Mm,
I brush my teeth, get in the shower. If I have braids, great. Don't have to do anything with my hair and I know what I'm going to wear. It's either going to be the orange scrubs or the teal scrubs or the brown scrubs and that's it. Like, that's it.
yeah. No, but I appreciate that a lot because, when I reflect on the life that I live
I
now,
lost you
it's
for a second.
yeah, do you have me now? Can you hear me now?
Now
Hey,
I
can you
can.
hear
The
me
video is
now?
still kind of frozen, but I
Yeah.
sort of hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're okay. We'll be able to edit that piece out. But yeah, it looks like it's recording now because it kind of froze on my side too. What I was saying was when I think about my life right now without a kiddo, it's a life of luxury, right? Like today, U and I, we still
Yeah.
wake up relatively early on the weekend, but like we like lay in bed and like look at things on our phone or read or laugh or talk for honestly sometimes hours because we can. Or in the morning
Yeah.
before work, I wake up at 6:30 because I want I want an hour and a half just to myself. So I take my time, I work out, I get dressed, I put on makeup, I choose a different outfit every day, I go to work. I recognize I'm soaking up that luxury of time.
Yeah.
For versus for my coworkers who have kids, my friends who have kids, it is totally different where you're trying to maximize your time with your kiddo, and especially with what we do as clinicians, that time is even more boxed because, I mean, something you alluded to at the beginning of this episode, which I really appreciate, I'm impressed by you because you give so much to your patients, it's clear, and yet you still have more to give when you get home to Angus and Zodi, and let's not forget, like, your mom, your sis, your other friends and family.
Yeah.
And that's impressive. There's times for me where I feel like there's not enough of me to go around, and I don't even have a kid. Like, I feel like I've given there's times where, like, I feel like my patients have taken everything out of me, and I show up and I'm like, "I'm not a great wife right now. I'm so sorry, but I'm exhausted." But
Yeah.
let alone
Yeah.
doing that as a wife and a mom, right? That's tough.
You know, it's and that was actually something I was really worried about actually. Becoming a mom was like when I would get home from work, like, or, or from like if I'm operating all day and I would get home and I would literally just crash because I'm so just mentally and physically exhausted. Um, That I really didn't feel like I was like, "Where is this extra energy gonna come from?" Because I'm kind of like I feel like I'm at capacity already, and then, like, to raise an entire human who has to really who you have to be present for, right? And who you have to build a relationship with, and it's like, where is that energy gonna come from? Because I really don't feel like I have that much left. But it's kind of like, you know how when you eat a meal, like, the dessert stomach is like, okay, when you eat your food and you're like, I'm so full, I'll never eat again. But then it's like, okay, but then dessert comes and you're like, suddenly there's room for like chocolate cake.
Yeah, yeah,
It's kind of
yeah.
like that. Like,
Yeah.
it's like you can be at capacity, but also not be at capacity at the same time
Mm,
because there's a dessert stomach. That's the
yeah.
best analogy that I can draw.
Yeah.
Like, it's just
I could see it.
you're full, but you're not full because you really did because you
Yeah.
know that there's dessert and, like, you have to make space for dessert. Like, you just have to.
Yeah. And that's that baby. That's Zodi for you. That's like that
Yeah,
extra oomph that you can still give.
she's my little carrot cake. Yeah.
Oh, oh, I would eat her all up. I would eat her all up. Speaking of she's delicious. Speaking of
She's so
which, you have been so generous with your time, like, especially when you tell me that during the weekdays, you only have 45 minutes with her on either end, and it's
yeah,
a weekend, so I wanna give you back your precious time with your sweet baby girl, and, oh, yeah, your husband, Angus, he's fine, he's gonna be okay, but Zodi deserves some quality time with her mama. Um, Thank you for being just so, open with your story. I asked you, like, one big old question, like, "Tell me about pregnancy through postpartum," and we did it. We dabbled in and everything in between, and I think what you highlighted to me was not only, the complexities of a woman of color with, medical comorbidity and what that means to bringing that into your pregnancy and how you mentally and emotionally prepare, let alone the physicality of labor and birth and having the acute traumas related to it, and still finding postpartum to be a really freaking hard time. But I also hear a lot of love and the idea of the dessert stomach and the fact that Zodi fills you back up. So I'm so grateful for you. I want to get you back to your little carrot cake baby. But any final words of advice or words of encouragement and love that you want to share with moms? Oh yeah, and pregnancy braids. That one, like I'm never
Oh,
gonna
yeah,
forget that
pregnant.
one.
Yeah, gotta do the pregnancy braid, yeah, and
But
like a
any
rotating outfit.
yes, but any loving words that you want to leave for any moms or moms to be there listening?
You can do it. So many women have done it. You can do it. And that's really that's all I can say is like you can do it. You have to do it. Well, you don't have to do it. You choose to do it. But I mean, once you commit to it, like you can do it. It's everything is doable. Of course with support, the support systems like we have to give credit to, to the doctors, to family, et cetera, friends. And friends like you, right? Who I've bounced things off of you too, and questions and like all those I forgot is this really true what so and so said? It's nice to have people around who can advise me when, when I have those moments where maybe my anxiety gets the best of me, who can talk me off the ledge, just like, when you had your little eye thing. So
It's
yeah, so
true.
I'm lucky, I'm grateful, but also thanks to you for doing this. I mean, like
Mm.
starting a platform like this is not an easy thing to do, and I know how much it's a labor of love, and I know it's time consuming, and it's not an easy thing to do, but we appreciate that now we have things like this and resources outside of just, I guess, medical literature, which for some people can be a bit boring. So something a little more, with a little more spice to it, and more
Yeah, a
just more
little
personal,
flavor.
something more personal. So we need this. So I'm grateful to you and have a lot of respect for you for putting this together and for making a resource that we really don't have anything like this yet. So go
Well, I appreciate you.
on us.
You are amongst the many moms that have inspired me not only in the work that I do clinically, but the work, this passion project, the work that I do outside of the office in the hospital. So I am grateful for you, Angus, Zodi, your entire family. We go way, way back. So
We do.
only have love. I can't wait to show up uninvited at her first birthday. No, I was
You
invited.
were
I actually
invited.
remember the invitation. I was invited. Look at me trying to just throw. I'm trying to throw shade at you, even though I just interviewed you. I'm a horrible host.
But you're welcome
I
to show
was
up
invited,
uninvited.
only invited. That's great. I just called myself out. I hope to see you guys soon at her birthday. But again, just so much love for you and the family. Thank you again for opening up and sharing your story.
You are very welcome. And I'm glad we were able to spend this time on a podcast, but someday soon it will be in person.
Yes, in real life and IRL, as the kids say.
That's our we're not
I
kids
think that's what
anymore.
we're not kids. No, Gen Z, they're the kids. We grown-ups. As you said, we're
We're
geriatric.
old. We're Jewish.
This has been great. I love it. I love you. Thank you very much for listening to The Golden Hour, the podcast community where moms and moms-to-be can hear stories from other mothers and learn from top experts in pregnancy and postpartum care. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share with your friends so we can reach more people like you. You can visit goldenhour.fm for more information, resources, and all other episodes. If you have any requests, questions, or suggestions for future episodes, please email me at hello@goldenhour.fm or leave us a comment at goldenhour.fm on Instagram. Looking forward to seeing you in the next episode. Until then, stay golden.